Highlanders versus the Rebels. And wow, we have kicked off the weekend with an upset. It finished 22-28 in the end. But boy, that scoreline probably flatters the Highlanders, let's be honest. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby predictions and opinion. So do head over to drivingmaul.com, where we have predictions for Super Rugby, Top 14, Pro 14, Gallagher Premiership, Major League Rugby, Six Nations, all of that kind of stuff. So do please go over and check it out. So, look, the Rebels started this game with some really good pressure, and for the first half really dominated that first half. Now, the Highlanders weren't doing that much wrong. Their set piece was a mess, let's be honest. They were turning over the ball, but defensively, they were actually defending quite well, up in the kind of 90% tackle percentages, ended up with an 88% tackle percentage, which is pretty decent. I mean, the line-out wasn't functioning. They were handing the ball over to the Rebels, but they were defending pretty well. The Maul defence was good, especially early on, until the Rebels did some really cool stuff. But it all came down to offloads. Something like 13 offloads in that first half, which was absolutely phenomenal. You had Matt Tamua taking it to the line, offloading. The scrum half did some offloading as well, and then a whole bunch of other players joined in. But it was mainly those two who were kind of running the show. And straight from the start, the Rebels were going to that corner and not taking three. So they didn't get 1-3 all game, which was an interesting tactic. There were times definitely where they could have just kept the scoreboard ticking over. It was a Matt Tamua taking it to the line, offload to Meeks, got the first try. The second one was a line-out Maul. Now, what happened there was basically the Meeks try came off fake line-out Maul. They also faked another line-out Maul. So when it came to this time, by the 12 minutes, we had like 4 or 5, about four line-out Mauls. It's like the fifth one where I say 2 of them were faked, 2 of them actually happened, and that meant that the Highlanders were having to think about what was going to happen, and took some of their forwards, put them in the middle of the park, because I think they reduced down to a 5-man line-out. So a couple of players were missing. They were too late getting to the line-out, getting to the Maul. And by that time, the Maul was moving, and they motored over. It looked like the Rebels were going to be their own worst enemies, because not long after that, Aaron Smith gets hit late when box kicking, and up until then it had been all Rebels pressure. This was getting up just around about the 15th, 16th minute mark. And up until then, it had all been Rebels. But that gave the Highlanders a penalty and field position in the Rebels half, and the Highlanders were looking good until Ioane dropped the ball. Kellaway picks it up, runs it all the way back for a try. And suddenly it's 0-21 after 20 minutes. There were some tweets out there going, "Oh, look, we're off for an 80-point game." No, this was never, ever going to happen. But yes, the Rebels were in control at that point. But they had left an awful lot of points out on the park by that point. The Highlanders' defence was good. The defence was actually good. The scramble defence was good, and that was keeping the Rebels' points down. They should have been more points ahead at that point. Yes, points a minute, and they should have scored more. Soon after that, McKay goes over. The Rebels tried playing out of their own 22. Now, up until this point, obviously, playing with ball in hand had been successful, so you can see why they did it. But they got squeezed over onto the left-hand side. They didn't get a good clearing exit kick, and that meant that the Highlanders had the position and the territory. They ran it straight back, got over the game line, and once they were rolling, it was hard to stop them. It was about getting that front foot ball, and so McKay goes over for that one. It was interesting to hear Brown, the Highlanders coach, getting interviewed on the telly. He said, "A few tired guys hanging around on the blind side, giving them space out wide." So clearly, he was not happy with the work rate of some of the Highlanders players in there. We then had the Rebels had a good overlap, had an opportunity to score, but the referee stopped play, called it back because Lenchis had a really nasty break of his leg. So let's wishing him all the best in his recovery because it's going to take some time. That was a nasty injury. Please do not go and look at it. It does not look nice. The Highlanders soon lost Daniel Leonard-Brown after that, who had been struggling, he'd been limping around, but you don't want to be losing your props. It means losing two players around about the half-hour mark, and suddenly that bench is looking pretty thin. You've got to say hats off to Rangi because he was having a massive game for the Rebels, hitting his line outs, working his absolute backside off over the park, around the park. I mean, actually getting Nariki and dragging him into touch. I mean, that's a hooker who's tracked back something like 30, 40 metres and dragged Nariki into the corner. And that's what really was happening here, and also then early into the second half was both sides were gambling, right? The Rebels were playing a real high line speed, but they were leaving space outside, and they were throwing players into the eye-line and the passing channels looking for those interceptions. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. It didn't work in that Nariki break, where Nariki very nearly scored in the corner. But it did work twice. We've said that we've got that Ioane dropping the ball and Kellaway picking it up early in the second half. Kellaway again intercepts and goes off for tries. So half the points here by the Rebels were from turnovers or basic intercepts. And for a side that dominated like 65% of the territory, 6% of possession in that first half, they should not have been getting points it shouldn't be via turnovers. They should have been building it and making tries themselves. On 40 minutes, it's only the fourth attack by the Highlanders. They score their second try, and it's 14-21 going in at half time. And Justin Marshall was talking about how clinical the Highlanders were being. Maybe they were with the breakdown and retaining the ball, but they were not being clinical about getting points. Their attack really went through a lot of moves, and they should have scored a lot more points. Within 7 at half time, I mean, they got that. So they got that. The second half, the Highlanders come out, they dominated for the first 10 minutes. Interception try, boom. Suddenly, effectively, the game is all over. The Rebels basically spent most of the second half in their 22 because they couldn't exit. Why couldn't they exit? Because their scrum half would not box kick. I did a stat at one point which showed that basically Smith and Hunt 6 and 8 kicks each. The hi to guys in the live chat. I'll be getting onto the yellow cards in a second, and we'll talk about that. But Smith and Hunt both, I think it was like 6 and 8 kicks at a time, so they're pretty balanced kicking, which means the defence have got two different options to try and cover. They know whereas on the Rebels side, it was 3 by the scrum half, I've gone blank, Lawrence, and 12 by Tamua. Clearly, everything had to go through Tamua. Lawrence was not kicking that ball and didn't have a box kick to exit the 22, and that made a real big problem for the next team. And because they couldn't exit, pressure eventually told, and we had the missed conversion that meant it was still a 2-score game just after the hour mark. But there was a penalty later on that the Highlanders knocked over. But let's be honest, the last quarter of the game was about 3 yellow cards. Let's talk about them then. Meeks was, which was the second yellow card, the one for the Rebels, was repeat infringements. We understand that. No big surprise there. They'd been under warning, and it was clearly the next guy who gave up a penalty in their 22 was going to the bin. That's why he went. The Highlanders, they lost their 2 guys, both wingers actually, to the bin for basically contests in the air. First one with Gregory, gets it all wrong. He goes up way too early, way too short, is in no position to catch that ball at all. As he comes down, Damon Helen-Petty's collecting it and is taken out. If you're not contesting for the ball and you take out a player, they land on their back, it's a yellow card all day long. Nariki, something similar. He ran past the ball. Damon Helen-Petty, looking up in the sky, jumps to collect the ball, jumps into Nariki, who he hasn't seen because he's looking in the sky, timing it to catch that ball, and again comes down, lands on his back. Nariki, another yellow card. If he lands on his head or his neck, it's red, guys, all day long. You cannot just and Nocturnal Rights in the live chat is saying it says the highball laws are badly written. Sorry, no, they're right. If any other option is, and then what's wrong here is kind of what is the way that the commentators are talking about these laws. They're saying that the person who's not got the ball has a responsibility to look after that player. Essentially, no, that's not the player in the air. No, that's not what they've got to do. They have to compete for the ball. If they're not competing for the ball, they can't be there. End of story. It's not about responsibility for the knock-on effect is it's about safety of the player in the air. Okay, but it's not so much about responsibility. It's about you cannot be in the area where the ball is coming down if you do not jump to contest for that ball. That's it. And if you contact somebody in the air, then you're going to be in trouble. Both these players were exactly that. They were in the area, not competing, not in a position to compete for the ball. Off you go. There was no two ways about it. And there's a lot of people on Twitter going, "Oh, look," especially for the second one is that look, Dame Hallopetti jumps over or jumps into the player. He's the one that's causing the danger. No, he's not. Look, he's looking up into the air. He cannot see the person that's on the ground. So if we're going to, we have two options really. One is you're not allowed in that area unless you're competing. The second one is there's no jumping for the high ball. Those are the only two options you have. Anything else that I've heard of just leads to players getting injured and some pretty and serious injuries as well. We're talking about people landing on their heads, necks. We're talking about people being paralysed here, folks. So that is really where what this comes down to. You either if you allow jumping, no one else can be there. If you don't allow, if you want to say people are allowed to be there, then you just have to outlaw jumping for catching balls. So that's it. Very true. That look if you want to see a sport contesting in the air, you should just go and watch the NFL. Maybe so. I don't watch NFL. It's a long time since I've watched it. But look, this is in NFL. You don't have the offside line and players in the same way. So you can have so players are generally paired up around the pitch a lot more. It's not quite so the same. It's a different dynamic because of the offside lines and the directions that both players arriving will always be arriving in rugby. Will always be arriving from different directions to catch that ball. Whereas in AFL, quite often the players will be arriving from the same direction or similar directions. They will obviously have situations where they do arrive from different directions, but in rugby, it's always that situation. And basically those yellow cards meant that the game got a bit disjointed towards the end and effectively petered out. Congratulations, Rebels. They deserved their win. But boy, they should not have been in a situation. They should not have let themselves be in a situation where the Highlanders could have won that game. That first half, they needed to have scored another 2 more tries with the amount of with the amount of stuff that he's got with the amount of possession and territory they had and opportunities they had. So someone says, I would argue that Hallopetti is being reckless for himself by not looking where he's leaping. Well, look, you can't look at the ball and look it down, right? You've got to look at one or the other. If you're looking down, you can't look at where the ball is. So, as I say, if the players, we tell them, keep your eye on the ball. If you're going to do that, and the way that these guys kick the ball so high up in the air, you can't look at the ground at the same time. So the only option is to say no jumping, or you can't, or you've got to clear out that area to make it safe for jumping. And the person actually gets up, but if both players jump and get to an equal height, both contesting for the ball, absolutely fine. But they have to get up, and we've known that for at least 4 years now. It's not exact. It's not a new rule. Now, Nariki is a sevens player. And so probably what we're seeing here is his transition to 15s. Is he's just not played enough 15s on the wing as a winger. Something similar to what we saw with Elliot Daly in his first Test match on the wing against Argentina, where he got red carded. He behaved like a centre on the wing. He didn't get up to contest for that ball, and he quite rightly got red carded for taking out the Argentinian player. Now he's had a few years playing wing and fullback. He gets up to compete for those balls. You don't see him making that mistake again. It's about, and that's probably why Nariki ended up in that situation, because he plays sevens. It's not a sevens skill. It's very much a 15s skill in that one. Gregory, another sevens player, apparently. I think someone mentioned on Twitter. But he tried to get up and contest. He just got his timing all wrong. To be honest, his was just bad skill. At the end of the day, he executed it wrong. He did try. Gregory was trying to do the right thing. To be fair to him, he was just awfully done. So there we go. Highlanders win. Rebels win against Highlanders, and then we have not seen this Rebels side this season. Okay, look, they were a mess against the Sunwolves in the opening game. Scraped past the Waratahs. This offloading game they've got going, but they only managed one offload in the second half, which is why they didn't get anywhere near the same forward momentum in that second half. And I think a lot of that was they couldn't exit because the Highlanders kept hold of the ball, didn't turn over the ball anywhere nearly as much in that second half. And they couldn't exit because they didn't have a box kick and everything had to go through Tamua. So you could just target Tamua with runners, knowing he's going to be the guy who has to kick it. Anyone else who gets the ball is not going to be ready or willing to or wanting in the right position to kick, and so you're going to get bad exits. And that's what we saw. And that basically stopped the Rebels' momentum entirely in that second half. And having given up that try to Mackay, their first try, by trying to play out their own 22, you can understand why they didn't want to play out their 22 and why they wanted to kick out. But it just did not work. So thank you very much, everyone who's followed. Clearly, we've got the next game up, and I've just gone blank as to what it is. Really exciting weekend. Don't forget, tomorrow, 4:45 for the Hurricanes versus Sunwolves game. There is no 7:05 game tomorrow, all New Zealand time. So it's an afternoon game. There's no evening game in New Zealand tomorrow. It's the first time I can remember there's not a Super Rugby game on Saturday evening. I think the schedulers have got it all totally wrong. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Don't forget, 4:45 tomorrow for that Hurricanes game against the Sunwolves. Thank you very much for watching. So check out DrivingMaul.com and hit the subscribe bell below because we'll be doing a week, Monday evening, 8 p.m. We'll be reviewing all the action from this weekend. Tuesday we'll have our rugby chat, and next Thursday we'll preview the round 6 games, all at 8 p.m. During the week. So hit that subscribe, hit that bell, so you get those notifications when we go live.